All right, let's dive into some healthy habits today. Looks like you guys sent in a ton of sources for this deep dive.
It's a really diverse mix. We have YouTube videos,
Podcasts, even a kid's cartoon,
some myths along the way.
and give you some practical tips to make healthier choices no matter what your lifestyle is.
Sounds good.
All right, so for sources today, we have Dr. Lane Norton on the Huber and Lab podcast,
Yep.
a video from Mel Robbins,
Oh, I love her.
a bit of Stephen Maggie,
Kids will enjoy that one.
Max Lubavere on a Diary of a CEO episode.
I've heard great things about that one.
And to round it out, we've got Dr. Sanjay Cofield on the Jay Shetty podcast.
Wow, what a lineup.
It is. And it's so interesting because we are getting such a diverse mix of perspectives on healthy habits.
We really are. We're going from like hard science
to practical everyday tips.
and just like,
How do you even explain these concepts to kids?
right.
I'm really excited to break it all down.
Me too.
Let's start with the Huber and Lab podcast and Dr. Norton's take on calories.
Okay.
You know, I've always heard it's just calories in, calories out.
Right. It's such a common phrase.
But he explains that it's not that simple.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he actually goes deep into how our bodies use calories.
Like way more complicated than I ever thought.
Right. It's not just like one simple equation.
So what does he say?
Well, he explains that different macronutrients like carbs, fats, and protein all contribute to energy production in different ways.
Okay, so like carbs are quick energy.
Right, and fats are more of a sustained source of energy.
Makes sense.
And then protein, well, that's what your body uses to build and repair tissues.
Especially after you've been hitting the gym.
Oh, absolutely. But here's another thing that I learned from Dr. Norton that I thought was really interesting.
What's that?
It's not just exercise that burns calories.
Wait, really?
It's true. He talked about this concept called NEAT.
Neat.
Yeah, it stands for non-exercise activity thermogenesis.
Okay, so what does that even mean?
Well, it basically means that things like fidgeting, walking, even just standing up, can burn a significant number of calories.
Oh, wow.
I know. And, you know, since I learned this, I've actually been making a conscious effort to just move around more during the day.
Like taking the stairs instead of the elevator.
Exactly. And you know what else Dr. Norton mentioned?
What?
There was this study where people who are overeating actually unconsciously increased their NEAT.
So they were burning more calories without even trying?
Yeah, it was like their bodies were automatically compensating for the extra food.
That's so cool.
I know, right? It really shows that our bodies are pretty amazing.
They really are.
And it just highlights the fact that everyone is different, right? What works for one person might not work for another.
So true.
So, yeah, more movement throughout the day is definitely a good takeaway.
For sure.
Now, another thing that I know a lot of people are curious about is protein intake.
Right. How much do we really need?
Well, Dr. Norton actually suggests aging for 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight.
That's a bit higher than I've heard before.
Yeah, it is a bit higher than the standard recommendations. But he explains that as we age, maintaining muscle mass becomes more and more important for our overall health and mobility.
Okay, that makes sense.
And he completely busts that myth that you can only absorb 30 grams of protein per meal.
Oh, thank goodness. I love a good hearty meal.
Me too.
So he says we don't have to worry about that limit.
Nope. He said what really matters is your total daily protein intake.
So I can have like a big steak and still be good.
As long as it fits into your overall protein goals for the day.
Awesome.
And you know what else is cool for all the vegans out there? He suggests some really clever strategies for ensuring they're getting enough leucine.
Leucine.
It's a key amino acid that's really important for muscle building.
Okay, so how do vegans make sure they're getting enough?
Well, he talks about adding isolated plant protein sources to their diet, or even supplementing with leucine directly.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and he actually mentioned that they're developing plant-based whey now.
Whoa, plant-based whey. That's a game changer.
Right, I know. Okay, let's move on to sugar.
Ooh, the sweet stuff.
Now, Max Lugavere in the Diary of a CEO episode pointed out that the average adult consumes a shocking amount of added sugar every day,
How much?
almost 20 teaspoons.
20 teaspoons? That's crazy.
I know. It's way more than most people realize.
And it's hidden in so many processed foods.
You really it is.
Like even things that don't taste that sweet.
Exactly. And he even talked about how manufacturers use ingredients like maltodextrin and artificial sweeteners to enhance the flavor of food.
So even sugar-free foods can be sneaky.
Right. And he cautioned against those hidden sugars, encouraging people to pay close attention to ingredient lists.
That's really good advice.
It is. Now, Dr. Norton had a slightly different perspective on sugar.
Oh. How so?
Well, he argued that sugar itself isn't necessarily the villain.
Interesting.
He actually believes that it's more about the overconsumption of calories in general.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah, he mentioned a study where two groups of people ate the same number of calories, but one group had a lot more sugar.
Ah.
They both lost the same amount of body fat.
Wow, that's pretty compelling evidence.
I know, right? So it really makes you think, is it about demonizing specific foods?
Or is it about focusing on our overall dietary patterns?
Exactly. It's all about balance.
I like that.
Me too. Now, speaking of dietary patterns,
Yeah.
both Dr. Caulfield and Max Lugavere seem to agree that ultra-processed foods are a big problem.
They're everywhere.
They really are. And they both make a really strong argument for prioritizing fresh, whole foods.
Sounds like a good plan to me.
Me too. You know, Dr. Caulfield actually had this great analogy about the supermarket.
Oh, I love a good analogy. What was it?
He said that the perimeter of the store is where all the good stuff is, the produce, the meat, the dairy.
Right.
But then you go into those inner aisles.
And that's where all the processed food lurks.
Exactly. It's like a danger zone.
I love that visual.
It's so true. And then Max Lugavere pointed out that those ultra-processed foods are often loaded with added sugars, unhealthy fats, and artificial ingredients.
Not exactly a recipe for good health.
Definitely not. And he even went on to talk about the potential negative effects of industrial-grade emulsifiers on our gut health.
Emulsifiers? Like what?
Things like polysorbate 80 and carboxymethylcellulose.
Wow, I've never even heard of those.
Yeah, they're in a lot of processed foods.
So maybe it's best to just steer clear of those inner aisles as much as possible.
Probably a good idea. Now, this leads us to another really important connection that both Max Lugavere and Dr. Caulfield brought up.
What's that?
The link between food and mental health.
Oh, right. That's so important.
It is. And, you know, I think a lot of people don't realize how closely connected our diet is to our mental well-being.
It's all connected.
It really is.
So what did they have to say about it?
Well, Max Lugavere actually mentioned this really groundbreaking study called the SMILES trial.
Smile.
Yeah. It stands for Supporting the Modification of Lifestyle in Lowered Emotional States.
Interesting name.
I know, right? But anyway, the study showed that a Mediterranean-style diet was actually effective in treating major depression.
Wow, seriously?
Yep. And it wasn't just because of weight loss.
So it was like directly impacting their mood.
Exactly. And Max Lugavere also talked about how chronic stress can actually drive us towards unhealthy eating habits.
Oh, I know that feeling.
We've all been there.
Stress eating is definitely a real thing.
It is. And, you know, unfortunately, it can contribute to weight gain, especially around the midsection.
Ugh, the dreaded belly fat.
I know, right? It's the worst.
So what can we do about it?
Well, that's what we're going to talk about in the next part of our deep dive.
Can't wait. It's wild how connected everything is, like our food choices.
Our stress levels?
Even just our mindset.
And they all affect each other.
Exactly.
But, okay, so much information.
Yeah, where do we even start?
Well, Mel Robbins had a good point in her video.
What was that?
She said start small.
Okay, I can get behind that.
Right, it's like you don't have to change your whole life overnight.
Yeah, just a little thing that you can actually stick with.
Exactly.
And celebrate those little victories.
Absolutely. Now, Dr. Caulfield also suggests using data.
What do you mean?
He recommends tools like bioimpedance scales and blood sugar monitors.
Okay, so we can actually see what's happening.
Exactly. You can see how your body is actually responding.
To food.
Exercise.
Is it a stress?
It's like having a personalized roadmap.
Okay, that's kind of cool.
Right. And he also mentioned something simple,
Like what?
a food journal.
Oh yeah, just write down everything you eat.
Yep. Just so you're actually aware of what you're consuming.
I tried that once.
Yeah.
I was shocked.
It can be eye-opening.
It really is. You don't realize what you're eating sometimes.
And you start noticing patterns.
Oh, totally.
Like, oh, I always snack when I'm stressed.
Or like late at night.
Exactly.
Makes you more mindful.
It really does. And speaking of mindfulness,
Yeah.
Dr. Morton talked about the link between our mental and physical health.
They're so connected.
They are. He said that chronic stress can mess with everything.
Like what?
Sleep,
Oh, yeah.
your immune system,
Oh, that's the worst.
and even how our bodies store fat.
Oh, no. Not the belly fat again.
I know. But Max Lugavere had some good points about that, too.
What did he say?
Well, he mentioned that research, the SMILES trial.
Oh, right, the Mediterranean diet one.
Yep. And it showed that diet can really affect our mood.
So it's not just about looking good.
Right. It's about feeling good, too.
I like that.
Now, let's talk about exercise for a minute.
Okay.
Dr. Norton really went into detail about the benefits.
He loved an exercise, right?
He does. And he had a good point.
What was it?
He said, find something you enjoy.
Makes sense.
Right. Don't force yourself to run if you hate it.
Yeah, find something fun.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be crazy intense workouts.
Oh, yeah, just move more in general.
Right. Take the stairs.
Park farther away.
Walk during your lunch break.
Get those neat calories in.
Exactly. And here's another cool thing I learned.
What's that?
Exercise can actually help regulate your appetite.
Wait, really?
Yeah. It can help you feel fuller for longer.
So it's not just about burning calories during the workout.
Nope. It has all these other positive effects.
That's amazing.
I know, right? But I want to go back to something we talked about earlier.
What's that?
The power of belief.
Oh, yeah.
Dr. Norton had those studies about the placebo effect.
With creatine and anabolic steroids?
Yep. And they showed that just believing something will work can actually lead to physical changes.
That's wild. But, like, how do we do that?
Well, he said to focus on our strengths,
Okay.
set realistic goals,
Good advice.
and celebrate our wins.
Even the small ones.
Exactly. And to see challenges as opportunities for growth.
Instead of setbacks.
Right. He said some of his biggest challenges led to the most growth.
That's a good perspective.
It is. So how do we cultivate that positive mindset?
That's the million-dollar question.
I know. Well, he had a good suggestion.
What's that?
Gratitude,
Oh, I love that.
right? Just taking a few minutes each day to appreciate the good things.
It can really shift your perspective.
It really can. And don't underestimate the power of your social circle.
Oh, for sure.
Surround yourself with people who lift you up.
And who support your goals.
Exactly. Their energy can be contagious.
So true. And what about self-care?
Yes, that's huge.
Taking time for yourself.
To recharge,
To do things you enjoy.
it's essential, whether it's meditation, yoga, spending time in nature,
Or even just taking a long bath.
anything that brings you joy.
Exactly.
So remember, cultivating a positive mindset takes time and effort,
It's a process.
but it's so worth it.
It really is.
Now, another aspect of health that we can't ignore,
What's that?
sleep.
Oh, yeah, sleep is so important.
It is, and Dr. Cofield really emphasized that.
He's right. We need those ZZs.
We do. He recommends 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep per night.
Okay, I can aim for that.
Me too. And he gave some good tips for improving sleep hygiene.
Like what?
A relaxing bedtime routine.
Makes sense.
Avoid caffeine and alcohol before bed.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
I know, but it makes a difference.
And a dark, quiet room.
Yep. And cool too.
I like my room cold.
Me too. And one more thing.
Yeah.
Limit screen time before bed.
Ugh, that's the hardest one.
I know. I'm so guilty of scrolling on my phone in bed.
Me too.
But that blue light really messes with our sleep.
It does.
So we got to try to unplug for a bit before bed.
Okay, I'll try.
Good. Now, before we wrap up, I want to touch on supplements.
Okay.
Dr. Norton talked about them for a bit.
What did he say?
Well, he said they should be supplements.
Not replacements.
Exactly. They can't replace a healthy diet and lifestyle,
Right?
but they can be helpful in some cases.
Like what?
Well, he specifically mentioned creatine and rhodiola rosea.
Creatine. I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's popular with athletes.
What does it do?
It helps improve exercise performance, increase strength,
Okay, cool.
and it can even boost cognitive function.
Wow, really?
Yep. And rhodiola rosea is an adaptogenic herb.
What's that?
It helps your body cope with stress,
Oh, interesting.
and it can also improve mental clarity and reduce fatigue.
Sign me up.
Right. But with so many supplements out there, it can be overwhelming.
It really can.
So Dr. Norton really emphasized doing your research.
And choosing high-quality supplements.
Yep. And always use them in conjunction with a healthy diet and lifestyle.
That's good advice.
It is. So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, any key takeaways about healthy habits?
One big one is the power of small changes.
Right. You don't have to do everything at once.
Exactly. Just find little things you can stick with.
And build from there.
Another thing is the power of data.
Oh, yeah. It's like tracking your progress.
Using those tools to see how your body's responding.
It's like a personal health detective.
I love that. And of course, mindset is everything.
Absolutely. Being positive and embracing challenges
Surrounding yourself with supportive people.
and taking care of your mental health.
Yes, it's all connected.
All right, so we're back for the final part of our Healthy Habits Deep Dive.
I can't believe how much we've already talked about.
I know, right? But we still have a lot to cover.
Definitely. What are we diving into next?
Well, I wanted to talk about this concept Dr. Norton mentioned called energy toxicity.
Energy toxicity.
Yeah, it's basically the idea that eating too many calories,
Even if they're healthy calories?
yep, even healthy foods to be a problem if you eat too much of them.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he was saying that overconsumption can throw off your body's balance.
No matter what you're eating.
Exactly. It's not just about the type of food.
It's about the total amount.
Yep, moderation is key.
Makes sense.
So Dr. Norton says we need to find that sweet spot.
Between energy intake and energy expenditure.
You got it.
So how we do that?
Well, it's different for everyone, right?
Right, everyone's different.
Your age, activity level, even genetics.
All play a role.
Exactly. So it's not about some magic number of calories.
It's about listening to your body.
Exactly. And Dr. Caulfield talked about that too.
Oh, yeah? What did he say?
He said we need to pay attention to how different foods make us feel.
Like if they give us energy or make us feel sluggish?
Yep. Or if we feel satisfied after a meal.
Oh, that's a good point. I never really thought about it that way.
Yeah, it's about being mindful.
Mindful eating.
Exactly. And Dr. Caulfield actually suggested experimenting with different dietary approaches.
To see what works best for you.
Yep. It's not one size fits all.
We're all unique snowflakes.
That's right. Okay, now I want to talk about something that's always fascinated me.
What's that?
Longevity.
Oh, yeah. Living a long and healthy life.
Exactly. Not just living longer.
But living well.
Yes. And Max Lugavere, in the Diary of a CEO episode, had some good points about that.
What did he say?
Well, he talked about minimizing exposure to toxins.
Toxins, like in the environment.
Yeah, like filtering your water, choosing organic produce.
Oh, and those chemicals in personal care products?
Yes, it's easy to forget about those.
But they can add up.
They can. And Dr. Norton, of course, emphasized exercise.
He's all about that gym life.
He is. But he was explaining how exercise can help prevent chronic diseases.
Like heart disease, stroke.
Yep. And even some types of cancer.
Wow, exercise is powerful.
It is. It can even improve cognitive function.
Really?
Yeah. And reduce the risk of dementia.
So we should stay active throughout our lives.
Absolutely. Now, before we wrap up, I want to mention one last thing.
What's that?
Dr. Norton talked about the importance of enjoying the process,
Enjoying the process of what?
of creating healthy habits. It shouldn't feel like a chore.
It should be fun.
Exactly. It should be about making choices that make you happy.
I like that. And it's something Dr. Norton really embodies.
Right. Like he was talking about his passion for weightlifting.
And how much he enjoys it.
Exactly. It's not just about the results.
It's about the journey.
Yep. So find something you love and enjoy the process.
Great advice.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive.
Wow, that was amazing.
I know, right? We covered so much.
From calories to mindset to
But
longevity.
everything in between.
I feel like I learned so much.
Me too. So what are some key takeaways for you?
Well, for me, it's the reminder that health is holistic.
Right. It's not just about diet and exercise.
It's about everything. Our mental health, stress
the
level,
mindset, our environment.
everything. And it's about finding what works for you
And making gradual, sustainable changes.
that you can actually stick with.
Exactly. It's about the journey, not just the destination.
Well said.
So to all our listeners out there, keep exploring.
Experiment and find what works for you.
And remember, even small changes can make a big difference.
Absolutely.
Until next time, happy exploring.